So why box? Why box? We've been championing box for a while, but now more than ever with the lost reps and the lost conditioning and the lost competition, we believe box is more important than ever, especially for our youth players, but most certainly for the high school guys as well. There's a variety of reasons why box is great, and we're going to try and outline some of those now. They kind of divide up into two sections, the training and the skill standpoint, but then the overall benefits of box for a program or a team or an area. Kyle's going to go ahead and discuss the program-based benefits and the overarching benefits, and then we'll kind of get a little more granular into the skill-based development.
Yeah, I think when you take a look at the landscape across the state right now, it's the publics that really need help, right? The public schools are the ones that have a volume of players that they have access to, right? But it's proven difficult to get that volume of players to a lacrosse field. Box can help with that. You know, as it stands in field, if a 7th, 8th grade athlete comes in, who's an elite athlete, right? He's an elite football player. He's way better than average on a basketball court because he's an athlete. And then he comes out to lacrosse and he has to pick up this tool that he's never used before. Well, he's trying out against kids that have used this tool for 5 or 6 years. Those kids may be as good of athletes. They may not be. But we do know that that kid in 3 or 4 years will be an exceptional lacrosse player because he is so athletic. Kind of gets turned away in field all the time. All the time. You know, Kyle Hartzell started playing lacrosse in the 9th grade. So did Terry Kimner. So did Bart Sullivan. So did a number of other people that ended up having great lacrosse careers. You, myself. But these are guys that have played for Team USA, made it into the Hall of Fame. Like, those athletes exist in every public high school in Texas. The major difference is that there's not a way to get them to the field right now, just because the kids are so skilled when they come out that they get put on a B team, and he's like, all right, well, no, I'm not a B teamer, so later lacrosse, and I'll go back to football and basketball. Well, in box, that same kid can come out, right, having never picked up a stick, use his athleticism to play great defense, pick up a loose ball. If he does pick up a loose ball, now he is outrunning everyone up the floor and having an opportunity to score. Now, it's really hard to score in box. Have to be very skilled to finish the ball, and we'll get into finishing and the benefits of box for that. But this kid will have an exceptional time. If he's a football player and he's a hoops player, he will absolutely fall in love with box lacrosse the first time he plays it and want to do it again and again and again. So it develops everyone. And for the public schools, it certainly creates depth, right? Depth of those new guys that we were just talking about that can come in and play, but also depth of existing players. The amount of reps that these guys get, getting up and down, it can't be replicated on the field. You can come close. We saw something kind of similar with our immersion league, but even our immersion league, it's nothing like the real deal, stepping in between the boards and getting up and down with real goalies and 4x4s and shot clocks and all of that. The depth that it will create, the depth in numbers, right, by allowing new and better athletes to stay with the game longer, but also just the depth of skill, the number of skilled guys you're going to have throughout your roster. You know, defensemen don't get to use long sticks. They all have to play with shorties. So all of a sudden their footwork gets insane. They're able to just play defense, hands-on, while running with people. and then they get to play offense and develop the stick skills to be able to clear the ball. And, you know, with the recent changes at the NCAA level that are probably coming down the pipe here at some point in Texas, game's kind of changing. You need two-way guys, and defensemen need to be able to play offense and score the ball and feed the ball and catch it and cutting and finishing and all of that. And box is the way to do it. Also think that it's crucial for the kid that hides, right? Seeing these guys, they little timid, maybe lacking some confidence, right? Out on a field, they just need to be kind of pushed in the right direction, right? And taught what it is they can do to have an impact on the game. But in field, those guys can hide very easily. Whether that be at the end of the bench, right, while coach is coaching and running the box, he's just kind of like dipping out at the end of the line to avoid his run on the field. Or, you know, maybe a coach puts him on the crease and then says, hey, don't ever feed the crease, right? And so this kid's just kind of, he's at the field, but he's not really participating in the game. Box, not an option. There's nowhere to hide. You must participate, right? You have to play offense, you have to play defense, and you only have to do it for about 45 seconds. And so as those 45-second reps add up for this kid who was timid, you will see that kid become an absolute animal in the box, because he's slowly building confidence over time, one shift at a time, 145-second shift at a time, not standing on the field for 45 minutes, spending 3 hours of his day to get there, eat, warm up, play this game, to touch the ball, 5 times? Maybe. So from that standpoint, it's really important, because no one can hide. Everyone has to play offense and defense. You know, and then if you're looking at it on kind of a bigger picture, right, with a longer term vision in mind, if you're a sixth grader right now in Texas, very few of you out there are playing box lacrosse, right? Well, the cat's out of the bag. The box movement is happening all over the country. And if Texas doesn't start to play more and our players and families get involved in it, you extrapolate that over 5 years when recruiting comes into play for high school, and Texans aren't going to have any spots, because the whole rest of the country, maybe not the whole rest of it, but a substantial part of the country is playing box at a young age. And over the next 5 years, if our sixth graders don't start playing, there will be no NCAA spots for them. They're going to be taken by the more skilled, the grittier kids, the kids that have been participating, that have been getting up and down in the box, reaping all of these benefits from the time they were in middle school all the way up. I mean, there's teams in Oregon, California, Vegas, and Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Arizona. I mean, those are the ones I can come up with right off the top of my head. Right, Louisville, out west, that and kind of the non-traditional markets that are playing. And I tell you what, we ran into a Louisville team. They kind of got after us, right? Team full of really good kids. We've seen it with the Denver Elite program, right? 5 years ago, what did our field games against Denver Elite look like? 1-2 goal matches either way, right? We were winning some, they were losing some. It was like a really good rivalry. Now, Dipsy-doo Dunkaroo, but they've been playing box, so much of it, for 4 years now, 5 years now, that they're kind of out in front. And the only way for us to catch up to some of these other parts is we have to start playing more.
Yeah, we do have to start playing more. And then there's a variety of pieces. Like once you get into the field, that's a more overarching look at it. But then there's the immediate impact on certain skills and abilities. The one thing that we see every single time we get to a box tournament is the ability to just throw the ball up the field. That is the first thing that you notice because there's a shot clock. So you have to advance the ball. Well, in field, traditionally, you give it to the best athlete and he runs it up the field, right? In box, that's going to take a long time. That best athlete might be tired. He might not be out on the field. He might be dealing with pressure, so he wants to get rid of the ball. So if you are able to throw the ball up the field, right, and that's everybody, not just the certain guys, it forces every single kid on the field to throw the ball up the field. Massive skill. And about game 3, right, you start to see your teams do a better job of it just from the environment. So throwing the ball up the field is so crucial. Developing instincts and awareness. Beating people up the field. Winning the whistle, right? Understanding, not sitting there looking at the ref. You hear the whistle and you have the ball. Chances are you're not keeping the ball, right? So somebody who instinctually has that awareness is beating you, right? They're using those 3 seconds that you're sitting there talking to the ref, right? And they're using that time against you, beating you up the field, getting opportunities to score on your goalie, and it happens really quick. So that also, those 2 things also start to wear on the false positives that are created from field. You can do a lot of things the wrong way, but if you are just dominant, right, and you're a dominant athlete, you can have false positives. Things that just would not work in the box, right? And ultimately won't work on the field when you're playing against really talented competition. I mean, there's a ton of them, but you can't just carry to certain spots. You have to have an understanding of where you can use your skill, your athleticism, and your ability, but just running to the middle of the field or throwing the ball to the middle of the field and turning the ball over all the time just will not bear the same fruit as it might in the field game if you're more dominant. Of course, finishing is crucial. The box goalie versus the size of the goal, the ability to move the goalie. One of the first things that you do in field is you just shoot low, right? Or everybody's screaming overhand at you. Well, you can shoot overhand perfectly all you want in box. That doesn't mean that the ball is going into the goal, right? You have to become a more skilled finisher. You have to understand how to move the goalie laterally, how to fake, hesitate, and then finish, how to snap the ball out and beat the goalie to spots, not just throw the ball at the cage and just be stronger, because it's just not that easy.
Yeah, and goalies aren't afraid.
No.
Just because you shoot the ball hard doesn't mean he's stepping out of the way.
Right. And that's another thing is everybody can play goalie, right? Anybody can jump in there and play goalie. You have the pads, because that also takes, it also takes time developing box goalies, but to just play box, you need box goalie pads, and you just need somebody to get in goal, because that'll help. As the goalies get better, obviously it makes finishing better. But that's a big part of it as well. Teaching your players how to deal with both pressure and physicality. One of the most interesting things is where you have a dominant field player who's very aggressive and very dominant, and then he gets into the box and he's not necessarily used to having somebody put their hands on him, right? Because they can't ever catch him because he's so fast. But now he's confined, so now he's getting frustrated because he's dealing with physicality. You have to learn how to deal with that physicality, right? And you can't get upset by it because it's just a part of that game. So that's another crucial piece, how to deal with pressure, how to lean on people, how to deal with being cross-checked. It's not illegal. It's a part of the game. So you have to learn how to deal with all of those things. Not finally, but movement, right? You have to move. You have to penetrate. You have to cut, because you have to get to the middle. And if everybody's just standing in one place, now the defense can just sit there, they can switch on picks, and they can defend, and you will never get to the middle, right? So you have to understand how to move, how to cut through and create space. You can't just sit there and be a participant, like and observe, whereas you might be able to do that in field, right? This forces everyone to move the entire time. You know, and in addition, it teaches camaraderie and how to substitute. Those are intangibles, just like in their instincts and awareness as well. The camaraderie you have on the sideline is different. Substitution, the understanding of how and when to substitute and where to substitute. One of the biggest things with box is you sub on offense, right? That's a good idea. Or right when you get done playing defense, there's, they can get more nuanced into that discussion. But for the layman, right, it's up, down, off. Because if you play offense twice and now you're getting back on defense, that's when you're tired. So there's so many benefits. Lastly, I'll just have Kyle speak to the environment, right? And, how that helps. But it's just such an amazing tool that, we're taking advantage of, and especially in these times where we've lost substantial reps, it's super important for us to be ready to capitalize and take advantage of this opportunity.
Yeah, that's all well said. The camaraderie piece, listen, the environment is uncomfortable at first, right? So you put a bunch of kids or humans, and it doesn't matter if it's box, lacrosse rink, or in a weight room, right? At first, it's going to be uncomfortable. But that's where we grow, right? That's where we grow as humans. And, that's where camaraderie grows. You put all of these kids that have never played together into a box rink, and you put them through a tournament, like they are the best of buddies at the end of it because they've gone through that together, right? And it's only them. The game is theirs. It's not the coaches, and it's certainly not the parents, right? Parents, we love you, right? But there is something to be said in box for the fact that the players are not able to hear what is said from the stands. They can't hear you. So they're literally just playing the game. And it's a completely different environment than any field tournament or spring lacrosse game that you go out to, where you have some parents, right, that are really disciplined and they do it the right way as a fan and supporter of their child. And then other groups that are completely out of their minds, right? And they're screaming their heads off, and you can't control who or what parents are at the field for spring games. So all of a sudden, 5 or 6 parents can create a totally toxic environment for kids to be playing lacrosse in. Unfortunately, we see it all too often. But in the box, there's none of that. They can't hear you. So it's literally them, their teammates, and their opponents with a little sprinkle of coaching in when we can get it in. But I would say that's a massive advantage to the box. And then something else I wanted to touch on that I thought about is that this is good for all players, regardless of position. If you're a goalie, box is excellent for you. Box is great for you to play goalie, right? It teaches you ball tracking. There are so many things happening in the game of box in such a confined space at such a fast speed that the players, including goalies, are processing so much information so quickly, right, that to survive, their brains have no choice but to speed up. And what that ultimately does is slow the game down once they're able to process that information. So for goalies, like tracking the ball, lighting's not great. There's a lot of pieces in front of you moving across your line of vision. So tracking the ball one side to the other, being able to play angles better, because box goalie is most certainly all about angles, and your hand quickness and speed means very little in there. So that translates back to the field, but also seeing goalies become excellent runners in box. So playing a runner in box rather than just sitting in goal, now you get to dole out some of the punishment on defense. You get to have some of the fun offensively, and developing your stick and those skills as a runner in box certainly translate to the clearing game, and when the ball's in your stick and field. Blaze Rudin's a great example of that. He's a runner in box, a really good one, and he's a goalie on the field, a really good one. So, I wanted to make sure that we hit those 2 points too. And then for defensemen, let you go through kind of what the benefit for the long stick defenseman is.
Right. I mean, if the long stick for you is a crutch, then you're really not a defenseman. You're just kind of holding on for the ride, right? In box, you have to be able to be hands-on, not go for the stick, because stick checks aren't necessarily encouraged, right? You want to cross-check, move your feet, run with your opposing player, hands-on. You really have to understand how to play picks, how to communicate through picks, because you're virtually communicating through a pick all the time. You have to be able to get across on the bottom when people get under. You have to be able to rotate. You have to really understand how to play defense, and not just individual defense, or not just basic slide from the crease, get your two, just generic vanilla, stuff, right? You have to be able to play defense. And then it doesn't make sense that the field game is so nuanced, where you could take a great field player and put him in the box, and he literally can't play lacrosse. He can only play a very small subset of lacrosse, right? In basketball, you play basketball. So you play offense, you play defense, because you're playing basketball, right? In lacrosse, like, well, I play offense, but when I go out there and play defense, well, that's not how it works. Like, you have to be able to play both sides of the ball, because you're playing lacrosse, right? And that is just so important, and such a key from a development standpoint, where everybody is asking, how do we develop? How do you develop? We want to get more developed, right? That's the key, is actually developing both sides, all the skills, and then all of the intangibles.
Right. And for the public schools out there, even the privates, there's times where depth at your high school roster becomes an issue. You get hit with injuries. You get hit with grades. You get hit with family stuff. You get hit with
small recruiting classes.
Right.
Small classes, small class sizes.
Right. Maybe kids left, and you just don't have a ton of numbers, and all of a sudden you need an attackman, right? Well, if your defensemen have been playing box for 3 or 4 years, you can take that long stick right out of their hands and give them a shorty. They're going to be just fine. Seen it many times in many different positions, right? An attackman can go from being an attackman to a really, really talented field goalie in a matter of a year. So it's all positions, no position, right? You're out there playing lacrosse. You're not a face-off midi. You're not a left winger attackman, right? You're not an ex-attackman. I mean, I've heard people say things to the effect of low left defenseman in middle school. I don't really know what that means, but I do know that it means he's probably not developing very much skill. And box does that. Everyone has to play offense. Everyone plays defense. And now they become interchangeable parts on the field, which is what you're trying to do if depth is an issue at all.
Right. And if development is the key. So that's what we're going to do. Why box? Why not? We're in. We're doing it. And it's going to be more important now more than ever. So stay tuned for information recording summer box leagues at the middle school, youth, high school levels. We're going to start to just put out a generic survey. If you're interested, let us know, and we will provide you more information as it becomes available.
Yeah, and don't just take our word for it. word is out. The NCAA coaches, the best coaches in the country, multiple sources of them talking about box lacrosse and how it is such a crucial key. So if you don't believe us, we'll show you some folks that you can take a look at that have a little bit of clout in the lacrosse world. So
Yeah, so that's why box. Got to do it.